Hi guys, welcome to the video, welcome to East Midlands Airport in the UK, and welcome to this beastie here. This is the Diamond DA42 Twin Star. It's by Cowles and it's running in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Now this aircraft's very close to my heart. It's the aircraft I did a lot of training in for my commercials, and I did both my twin rating in it and also my multi-engine instrument rating in it, and it's basically what got me through my frozen ATPL. So obviously I've got a lot of fondness for it. And it's a fascinating aircraft. But before we go any further, just going to mention huge thanks to those who follow me and also who've watched the last few videos. It means a huge amount to me, both personally and also in terms of supporting the channel. And so if you do enjoy the video, please don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe. And the main thing is it gives me some feedback to know what I should be doing in future. You know, at the end of the day, it's one thing creating content, but what you also want to do is make it current and relevant. But anyway, back to this beastie here. Let me just bring the product page over. Okay, so I got it from the Orbex website, as you can see, and it's got quite a lot of information in here about it in terms of the flight model, the systems, etc. And to me, the DA42, as I say, is a very special aircraft because it basically is the fledgling pathway for a lot of baby airline pilots these days. But when I flew it, it was actually the version prior to this. This is and it caused a bit of a kerfuffle in the examination side of things for flying training. The reason being was that it's basically FADEC engines. So a friend of mine unfortunately had to go through the precursor to this aircraft, which was flying the Piper Seneca with turbochargers and all sorts. So whereas I had one lever per engine, he had 3 levers per engine because he had. In fact, he had 4 levers per engine because he also had the cowl flaps. So he's juggling this massive collection of levers with turbochargers that you can overboost, etc. Whereas all I had was a let's rock pair of throttles that forward go faster, back go slower, simple as. So of course that caused a bit of kerfuffle. The other thing was the cockpit. Now let's just pop into the aircraft briefly. Dink. So the other thing that caused a bit of a kerfuffle in the early days was you had to do 2 elements in your license that this aircraft changed. The first thing is you had to do what's called partial panel. So originally, obviously, aircraft used to have their 6-pack, and the aircraft used to have, some of them were electrical and some of them were pneumatic normally, or vacuum driven I should say. And in the event you had a failure, then you would have to revert to partial panel, and you'd do your upset recoveries in partial panel, etc. So they could measure you with that. Now, obviously, we've got our big multifunction display, our nav display, our big TVs at the front, and they give you a huge amount of data. But obviously, the powers that be don't want you to rely on one set of navigation instruments. They want you to have a reserve set. Please excuse the phone. They want you to have a reserve set, and Diamond, bless them, gave you almost a 6-pack look. And you've got all the key things, but what you've got more than anything is you've got an attitude indicator, which is huge in flying. A working attitude indicator is an enormous benefit. Once you start doing partial panel and you haven't got an attitude indicator, that's when it gets a bit fraught. And obviously that's where it came adrift, because the examiners, when you flew with them, they couldn't examine you on a partial panel in the air, or certainly they couldn't at the time. I don't know what they do these days. But that meant that you had to do your upset training in a simulator, and you also had to do your partial panel in a simulator, which is quite surreal really. But as I say, it burst into the training world more than anything else. One of the main reasons being that it used Jet A1 or diesel. It could use both fuels in the engine, I believe, but that fuel was cheaper than avgas, which is what had previously been powering the training fleets of the world. Likewise, it was actually really beneficial because a lot of people were training for airliners in aircraft that were 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, whereas if you came into this thing, I mean, the aircraft I flew was less than 6 months old by the time I got my sticky mitts on it. But the jump from, say, a Cessna 152, which is all steam gauge, to this thing is huge. Okay, so here she is in all her glory. What we're going to do is have a look around the outside and see what we think. Now, from the offset, I'll say the exterior modelling is very good. We'll have a look at the sort of the gross morphology of it in terms of does it look right. And I suspect it's probably more to do with the sim than anything, but this long proboscis type nose, I don't remember it appearing to be that long, but I'd say on the whole it looks very correct. There's slight differences in the engine cowlings, if I remember rightly from the version I flew, and there's likely to be quite a few little changes around the airframe compared to what I flew, as I say. But as I say, looking at it from the outside here, it looks really good. Lovely curves, lovely proportions, very well modelled. The 3D modelling, I have to say, is very good. We'll have a closer look in a moment, but as you can see, comes along. We've got good use of PBR, so we've got different textures here in terms of shiny and shiny metal and shiny sort of composites, and the very nice, lovely aircraft in terms of when you walk around one. They're very nicely made. The composites obviously are a bit more like a glider in many respects in terms of what they look like when you're close up to them, but lovely bit of modelling as we look down here. Look, lovely attention to detail on the lights, but we'll have a close look in a moment. And as I say, very nice. The tail was a bit of an oddity really. It's got this sort of droop down. I'm not sure why that was in terms of the aerodynamic development, but yeah, it's really nicely done. So from a distance, it's a big tick, a big thumbs up. So let's have a slightly closer look at it and see what we think, and see what bits we've got. So as we come right close in, you can see that we start to get a little bit of a breakdown in terms of curves here. So as you look at the spinner here, you can see it's got straight line. But the overall shaping of it is very nice, very pleasing to the eye. Likewise, the washout on the blades here. You see how it's sort of flat here and then flat to the air fit here and then twisted in. Very nicely shaped, very well done. We do like that. Let's just have a really close look at these stickers. Yeah, you see the detail here. A little bit overzealous with my zoom. You can see here we're starting to break down the lines a little bit, but what do you expect? We're literally planting our nose on the thing. But even then, look, you can see the stickers at this proximity. Very nicely done. A little bit of breakdown of the texture here where the inspection port is, or the inspection flap, but you can see very nicely done overall. Particularly areas like the intake down here and the intakes here, very nicely done. Excellent PBR. The reflections are very good indeed. You can see that down this cowling here. Very nicely done. And overall, I think it's a really nice 3D model of this area of the aircraft. This, by the way, is the anti-icing. It's a liquid anti-icing, so some aircraft will have electrical anti-icing or de-icing on the props. In this case, it's got liquid. So basically, what it does is it has an anti-icing fluid reservoir that supplies the anti-icing fluid, which then is basically thrown out along the wing. That's the best I can remember of it. I haven't got the details to hand. In fact, I'm a bit upset actually that this has come out, because the other week I threw away a lot of my reference from when I was flying this, which is a real shame. But yeah, as I say, very nicely done. We'll just have a quick look down here, see what we can see. My controls are being an absolute arse at the minute. So nice attention to detail on the gear. It always looks a bit gangly to me. Very nice texturing, nice bit of fluid, the labelling on the oleos. Nice sizzling here, just showing the extension, and again different textures showing very nicely. And actually, there's a very nice texture just in here, if I can get a better look at it, of the composite and the laminations. Very nicely done. Gear, door actuators. Very nice. Wow, we're a little bit close in here, but actually it does show the PBR very well. It's got a very matte, mottled, dirty effect here. We've got our sort of slightly bronzy, shiny metal effect here, and then where the light's shining in from the outside on this chrome effect, very nicely done with the reflection underneath. Beautiful, lovely. Absolutely love it. Dirt streaks underneath. Aircraft get dirty, fact of life. Really nicely shown though. Really do like that. Let's have a look at the main gear as well whilst we're here. In terms of me and these controls do not get on. Very nicely done, I have to be honest. It's got quite a bit of wear and tear. Obviously what I saw was brand new. It was literally 6 months out of the factory. Don't quite know what's going on with the flickering of my screen, but it's being a bit of an arse to me today. But again, really nice shaping. A few areas where it's squaring off a little bit, nothing too major. It certainly doesn't detract from it. A lot of detail in things like the bolts. You know, I remember the days where all of this would have been 2D, this brake caliper here. But nice with the tyres. Again, you can see a little bit squaring off where we've got the straight lines instead of curves. But overall, I have to say, very nicely done. The linkages for the undercarriage, very well done. Again, You know, you've got the different lighting effects and the different textures, all very, very well done. Very nice. Just under here you've got the hinges for the flaps there, and as we go scooting along we'll come across the ones for the ailerons up here. Tie down point, access points for the for getting to the contents of the wing. Very, very nicely done. Just scoot out and get up a bit. Up, up, up. And again, very nice with the wingtips. I mean, it's a very efficient aircraft, and one of the things that the wingtips do is they provide, depending on the aircraft, 5 or 10% efficiency. And one of the benefits for this when it came out for the student airline pilots was I don't think we necessarily saw a cut in terms of how much we were paying hourly, but certainly we were getting a much more modern, much more capable aircraft at the time. But really nicely done, very nice attention to detail, static wicks present and correct, very nice. This is a beautiful difference in terms of texture here. You can see the reflections in the silver mirrored bit and the exhaust. Jet A1, as we said, in terms of the fueling. Very nicely done. As a commercial pilot we ended up having to do all... In fact, it was weird because we were based out of Coventry, but at the time Coventry had an issue. I can't remember the entire details, but we ended up with a situation where we had to drive to Cranfield from Coventry to do our flying training out of Cranfield. It was a bit of a debacle, to be honest. But having said that, Cranfield's a very nice airfield and very interesting one to fly out of. But I digress. Lovely different and variations in the colours of the plexiglass for the canopies. Nice curve, a little bit of markings here. Very clear indications at this point. Let's just go down a little bit and you can see a static port here, keep clean. Slight blurring of the textures once you're close to it, but nothing too major. Aerials are all present and correct, and this is part of the anti-icing system, so you've got the same equivalent on the front of the fin here, the tailplane, and the front of the main wings, and it's called a weeping wing system. So basically what happens is the de-icing fluid is pushed out of loads of tiny holes, and it in effect causes the liquid to flow backwards over the surface of the airfoil, and it's one of those things that you need to use carefully because you've got a limited amount of it, unlike, you know, whatever you've got coming out your engines in terms of the airflow. But in addition, you also have to try and catch the aircraft before it starts to pick up icing, because if you block all the holes, now it's going to come out. But very nice bit of kit, very nicely represented down here, all the stickers present and correct, more static wicks. So close in, it's very nice. It's not the best, I will be honest, in terms of the external presentation. There's a few areas where for me it just looks a little bit, so this area around here, a little bit could be a little bit neater for me. Having said that, I don't do the art or the development of 3D modelling, so you know, I'm not necessarily talking from a position of strength with that. But what I would say is that overall, I'm very happy with the externals of the aircraft. So let's pop inside and have a look at what we've got inside. Okay, so inside, let's have a look at the cockpit and the other area, your seating area. And I have to be honest, in real life it's actually a really comfortable place to be. It's a lovely environment. It's got a couple of oddities, but then so has every aircraft. But yeah, so having a look at the sort of general big picture of it, very nicely modelled. The 3D modelling, it's absolutely nailed what it's like in the aircraft. I can't fault it at all. It looks really good, and to the best of my eyes it looks 100% accurate, even down to the differences with the stick tops, which is cool, very nice. And yeah, everything looks good in terms of shape. There's nice depth, there's nice recessing to the gauges, for example, nice gaps. Everything just looks nice. And in fact this instrument here, the secondary artificial horizon, looks particularly good because look at how fine the detail is for the little lines holding the yellow triangle. Really nice, really nice. So anyway, let's have a look around, as I say. So things like the pedals, etc., they all look good. They all have a certain patina of wear to them, and the animations are nice and slick. Sounds as well, yeah, they've all got different sounds. So yeah, really nice in terms of the sounds, and the 3D modelling is absolutely spot on. I also like things like the fact that we can pull our circuit breakers and it will have an effect. We'll muck around with a couple of the circuit breakers, and also there is an element of persistence modelling in terms of the aircraft as well. So there's written instructions about it. I haven't implemented it yet, to be honest, but there's written instructions about it on the documentation that you get with the aircraft, etc. So yeah, texturing, I'll be honest, you're not going to get much better in texturing in terms of the Diamond. The DA40 and 42, they're quite plain Jane in terms of their aesthetics inside. Seats are nice. The seats are very comfortable in actual fact. The stick caused a bit of a novel thing as well, because everybody used to fly with their knee boards in their Seminoles and their Senecas and that kind of thing. Well, of course, you've got a stick coming out of your seat now, so you couldn't do that. So I just binned it the other day, actually, which is a shame. But you used to have like a U-shaped knee board, so that you could have, and it worked really well, because I think I had my I had my scroll pad on the right, some information across the top, and then down on the so radios, etc. And then down on the left, I had my JEPs, my Jefferson charts, which were in use at the time. And yeah, it worked really well, actually, to be honest. But yeah, again, this causes a bit of a confusion, because the parking brake and the defrost, I think they're the other way round on the DA40. My memory serves me that there's a bit of a weirdness between the two aircraft where it's subtly different, and I think it's the parking brake that's different. But yeah, a couple of things down here to note. Simultaneous use only. So these are the auxiliary pumps for the auxiliary tanks. The aircraft's got 4 tanks. It's got left, right, and then it's got a left auxiliary and right auxiliary. If you've got fuel in the auxiliary, you turn these on. And then these are really natty controls, because they're kind of all in one. So you've got your it's just basically like a jet. It's like a shut-off valve. It's not like mixture. It doesn't have any. It's either on crossfeed or off. So one is fully forward. Crossfeed is back. So this engine will therefore be draining from this tank, the left-hand tank. And if you move the crossfeed, this cover here, you can put it into fully off, so you can shut the fuel stop completely. So yeah, it's always quite fun having that, because when you do the exam, you end up, obviously, if you're operating low power on one engine because you're fanning around doing whatever, you do end up having to shift fuel around in the exam. And I can't remember what does it say over here. Yes, it does. I mean, this shows how good the graphics are, how close we are in to read this. I remember days when you'd zoom in and you wouldn't be able to read anything. It'd be all fuzzy. It looked great at distance, but not close up. But yeah, max usable, blah, blah, blah. Max differential, left hand and right hand. Main tanks, 5 US gallons. So it's not. It's a decent amount if you think you've only got 25 gallons in each tank anyway. So yeah, I mean, and again, one of the other things with the aircraft is it sipped fuel compared to the its older generation of aircraft. It was much better for the fuel usage. So yeah, absolutely wonderful setup. It reminded me the other day with the earthquakes and the volcanic eruptions in Iceland. My first go at the multi-engine instrument rating, I arrived at. In fact, no, I was doing the first flight for the exams, and when you do the first flight, you get some of your information the day before, so you can plan everything. The only thing you can't do, obviously, is apply the weather to it, and the airfield, etc. And I turned it on, and it was what, 2010, 2011, something like that. And it was the first of the volcanic eruptions that closed airspace, and I looked on the NOTAMs for the first thing, and it just had massive swathes of airspace closed, and I was like, it's my exam. So yeah, I had to do it a couple of weeks later, once it all died down. But when they closed all the airspace and I just looked on the NOTAMs, it was like, oh my god. And you're wired up already, because you're doing your the biggest exam of your flying career to that point. But yeah, so I digress anyway. Okay, so let's get this thing fired up and we can talk through stuff as we go. So down here we've got the G1000, It's going to be the major part of flying this thing for a lot of people. And as I say, I've done quite a detailed video on the G1000 and use of the G1000. I'll drop a link in the or drop the link in the description of the video. It's actually done on the X-Plane version, the X1000. When I did the video, I found it was remarkably accurate compared to the real thing. But this is a newer version. It's been done by Working Title. So if you like, there's the default G1000 within the sim. Working Title have developed that into a more advanced setup, which is what we've got here. But it's not a full simulation of the G1000. I'd highlight that. There's some areas where it's not the same. And also one of the key things it's not the same is in terms of being able to use the flight planning system in the G1000, when you load into the flight, you have to have a flight plan in. All I do generally is I have a departure and an arrival, and then I program the rest in the G1000 to meet the criteria of what I want. So yeah, it's the flight planning system isn't the greatest in the flexibility for that, because if you fly a route, before you can then put in a flight plan for another route, you end up having to come out and go back in, or at least I've found that that's how I end up doing it. But I'm not going to harp on too much about the G1000 because there are restrictions within the sim as to what it can do. And as I say, Working Title are a great team who are developing this, and amongst a couple of other things in the sim. So we'll work with what we've got, but actually, even regardless of that, the aircraft itself is a cracking piece of kit. So what we'll do is we'll fire it up, and I'll talk through some of the bits as we go. It's not going to be a tutorial on this by any stretch of the imagination, but what we'll do is do this and get it fired up. So on the system I flew in, unless you had the avionics master, this screen stayed black. Turned off. It didn't fire up till the avionics was on, if I recall correctly, but as I say, I flew the first iteration of the G1000, and that was years ago, so it may well be that my memory wasn't quite accurate. So AHRS is the Attitude and Heading Reference System. Basically, it's very similar to the inertial reference system in terms of what it gives as information. It doesn't work the same. It hasn't got loads of gyros, spinning up laser gyros, etc. I don't quite know how it works in terms of the system, but fundamentally it's very similar to that. It basically tells the system what attitude and speed the aircraft is doing, not necessarily the position, because you tell it you know, your flight path. It will figure it out. Now, as you can see up here, we've got our basics of our flight plan. So we're going east mids to Cranfield. Cranfield is one of the examination centres, or at least it was. That's where I did my instrument rating test out of, my multi-engine instrument rating. And it's got great facilities there. It's a lovely place to fly out of. So yeah, fantastic. Brings back a few memories. So anyway, what we'll do is we'll power up the second screen, and as you can see, it then moves the engine stuff over here, which is great. This I will mention this actually as we here. The presentation is in terms of percentage load, so if you like to think of it similar to a jet, 0% demand on the system for power to 100% demand on the system. And I keep referring to these as throttles. They're not, they're power levers, because actually you don't control the throttle with it. You control, in effect, you make a demand of the system for however much load, and it will deliver it. So it's fully FADEC with the engines. You don't need to faff around with anything. So you haven't got any mixture lever, prop levers, etc. It figures it all out for you because it's a damn sight cleverer than I am, which is really cool. But it means it's actually more like flying a jet, because all you've got to do is push them forward, pull them back until your heart's content. And you know, it's all in your responsibility. There's no auto throttle in this thing, which for me makes it much more fun to fly. I'll harp on as well about these things. The circuit breakers are fully functional, so when I've pulled that one for the multifunction display, you can see it's reverted to its basic sense with one screen for all of the information. So you've got all your flight information here and down here, and if you wanted, you could put things like your flight plan on. So map HSI, layout, flight plan over here. You can put your flight, so you can theoretically operate everything from one screen. But we'll pop that circuit breaker back in, and so there's all of these are functional. Let's just turn that on, and then we'll fail the PFD. And as you can see, what it's done is nothing. You should be able to press this button as well to. It's failed the PFT, but it hasn't transferred any data. So I reckon that's going to be a limitation of the system rather than anything else. But as I say, in terms of cows, they didn't develop this. They put it in, and I think actually it's a wise decision, because the time and financial cost of doing a one-to-one replica of the Garmin G1000 would be extortionate. So they've done for me what is the best decision in terms of getting a good product that we can use with a balance to the system. But let's turn the avionics master on as well whilst we're here and risk running the battery down. So as I say, I'm not going to go through a tutorial on this. We're just going to do a few bits and bobs so that we can get a flight and see how we go. So what we're going to do is come over to this screen. We'll put the flight plan up, and as you can see at the moment, it's EGNX to EGTC, and it's up here. So if you load the aircraft without a flight plan, this will come up and it'll all be empty, and you can't put any details in to create an active flight plan. So as I say, you have to create an active flight plan before you load it into the sim on the initial screen for setting up a flight. Having said that, once you've done it, it's really not a problem after that. We can call up the cursor and the cursor flashes away. What we're going to do is just go up to EGNX to start with. We're going to do a procedure, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a departure. And from that departure we want the Daventry 3 November. Great, it's got it. Press the button or enter, you can do either or. And as I say, for me the presentation, I don't recognise it being sort of this lozenge shape. I'm sure it was square, but we'll keep going down and load that in, and you'll see now we've got the start of. If I zoom out, you see we've got the start of it here. So very nice indeed. There's a couple of features on here as well that I'll highlight that weren't there when I was flying. Likewise, we didn't use the VNav. We were expected to be able to fly our own profiles without just using a system. And actually, in terms of real world, I didn't use this system a massive amount because you're being tested on your instrument flying capacity, and most of that was done using beacon navigation. This was, you were allowed to use, I think you were allowed to use it during the cruise for this. In fact, no you weren't, you still had to use beacons during the cruise. So yeah, the system's really, really good, but they don't allow you to use any of it during your instrument rating, which is, you know, that makes sense. So yeah, where are we going? So that brings us to Daventry. I think from there we go on the Lima 10, so go up to menu, load airway, enter. It should allow us to pick one. If I can, there we go, Lima 10, enter, and then it will ask where we're coming off, and we're going to come off at Honolulu, enter, enter, oh no, hang on, go there, Daventry to Honolulu, load, enter, and then we're literally, that's us set up pretty much. So looking at the approach now, or the approach, enter. We'll do I don't know, we'll just set up as an ILS for 2-1. Probably not going to end up going there. Enter, and then we only want to load it at this point because we're not going to fly it. What happens if you activate it is it goes, all right, okay, well we'll set you up for the approach, and it basically ignores everything else. Enter, and that's a route in. If you wanted to add a waypoint, you just click, I say click, you can see it does holes, etc. as well, so get ourselves a highlighted one going ping 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 ping, and then all you'd do is type over that. So let's say we wanted to go to, I don't know, Birmingham something, E, and it's just the same as the real thing, except with this actually you can type in, which is makes it EGBB, comes up with Birmingham, and then you know, Bob's your uncle. If you wanted to, you can go enter to accept, and it's chucked it in, look, just before. So as I say, I've done a video on how to use the G1000 previously for the X-Plane version, and most of it transfers over. So what we're going to do there is go there and click clear. It'll ask if we want to remove it. Yes, we do. Enter. So there's a lot in this system. It's not quite as detailed as the X1000 or the full thing, but it's certainly good enough for what we need in terms of what we're doing. So yeah, in terms of the rest of the systems, as I've mentioned, the circuit breakers all work, so that's all good and fun. Air data computer, if you take that off, then it'll start to struggle. It will get a warning, and your pressure instruments, if you look at them, i.e. your air data ones, vertical speed fail, altitude fail, so that's a crucial one. And it's very similar to the airliner in the way it does that, in terms of going, you know, let's bring all the data into a computer and then we can send it to multiple areas where we want to use that data, fail the flaps, etc. So all of these work. All of these are really good fun to play with if you want to play with them. Likewise, because the DA40 is frequently used in training, what this enables you to do is to fail certain things, and therefore you can practice, which is great. Now, in terms of performance, as I say, the numbers pretty much match the book in terms of what I'm aware of. So let me just get rid of that. Let it go back to its routine. We'll get rid of the flight plan as well. And we'll just look at the rest of the aircraft and get this thing fired up. Certainly, I think cows to this point have done a very good job. Right, so let's get the engine started. I will also point out, obviously the engines are FADEC. We'll have a play later on, but you'll see one of the really nice things in relation to the engines, because what we'll probably do is shut an engine down, and you'll see the behaviour of the props, which is really nice. Obviously being FADEC, they're fully feathering, so they will automatically feather when they realise that they're supposed to feather, which is good because you haven't got any control over it at the end of the day. So let's get this thing started up. It's pretty easy to start up. We'll start up the right hand engine first. So all you've got to do is put the master switch on. It comes up with a warning, two warnings: the right oil pressure and the right glow plug. Glow plug goes out after a few seconds. Once it's gone out, all you have to do is turn the key to the right for a few seconds. Spins up, noises and sounds are absolutely spot on. Now we've got the system charging, really useful, because we can just get ourselves, and it's fast. This aircraft is really fast. What we'll do is just change the CDI to what we want, which is the outbound, and then we will start up the left hand engine. Wait for the left glow plug to go, and then start the left engine. A few spins and it's away. Now, as I say, the sounds are absolutely spot on for this thing, and you'll see during the flight test that they are spot on. Yeah, so pretty much that's it. A little gripe, it's not a gripe for the developers, but this, in terms of the lights, it's very difficult to see. It's easier to see in the actual aircraft whether they're on or off, and there's no annunciations. So obviously at night you'll see things like the strobes, etc. going on. In the daytime less so, but it's very easy to miss whether these are on or off in real life as well, just because of the fact it's not as easy to see as I would have liked, and likewise, you know, in the sim, I think, you know, there are limitations as to what can be portrayed. Flaps, 3 position, up, approach and landing. The gear is fantastic in this thing because you've got no limiting speed. The limiting speed of the gear, as I recall it, was your maximum, your Vmax, your maximum airspeed was your limiting speed for the gear. So you could argue that if you're in, you know, a bit too high and a bit too fast, you can just drop the gear. Unprofessional, I wouldn't want to see it done, but if you're in a, I really need to get out of this mess that I'm in because I'm far too fast or far too high and I haven't got any other options, just drop the gear. A lot of drag, and it does come down like a bit of an air brake, really. Pitot heat goes on. The 2 warnings go out. The stall heater warning should come back on, so it does, and that's because it doesn't heat the stall warner whilst it's on the ground, but it should go out once we're airborne. Clear that and it will stop flashing. Just a few things whilst we're here as well. The map HSI, you've got lots of options you can do in terms of layout. so you can have your inset map there. You can have an HSI map, which wasn't an option in the aircraft I flew. You couldn't do that, so that's quite neat and dandy. There was another option here that I remember from, where are we going? Was it in PFT? It might have been in PFT options. Was it? Yes, synthetic vision terrain. We didn't have that as an option, so you could have terrain showing, which is what we've got here. My setup looked like that because it didn't have the terrain. And heading label, it also didn't have a heading label in my aircraft, which I think is the it's like a direction indicator. I'll show you it when we're airborne, I think, if I remember. So yeah, it's nice to have that facility. The more modern systems have that. My system didn't, but it's pretty much exactly the same as this in terms of everything. And again, the map system's really nice. And that really is getting the aircraft up and running. There's nothing to it, really. It's just a couple of switches. In terms of testing, this is done down here using this equipment here. But what we'll do is we'll trundle off, get ourselves to where we need to be, and get airborne and have a look at how it behaves there. Now I'm just going to chop in half with the wing. Don't really care. It's a simulator. I can do that. I can be God. Brake off. Bit of power on the left engine. Hard right on the rudder. Thing comes around really well. Very agile plane on the ground, this thing. I must admit, I would say the ground handling, when I can recall it, in this thing was unremarkable. The thing I notice here is the throttles are idle, the power levers are idle, and we're picking up a decent whack of speed here. Let's just put that circuit breaker back in before we take off and start to panic the world. But you can see we're coming. I've got no power on at the moment. We are absolutely roaring across the terrain. A little bit too much for my liking. I don't remember having to hold it back on the brakes, because when there's no power on, the discs are almost flat on this thing. There's not a lot of thrust to them at all. But there we go. So let's trundle along. Let's find ourselves a way to turn down here. And then we'll just have a quick talk ground handling wise. So ground handling is nice and easy. Steering's very progressive. I don't know what I've got the curves set at on my sensitivity, but what I would say is, compared to some of the aircraft where they dance across the airfield trying to throw you around, this certainly doesn't. It's a very nice thing to drive with your feet. It's just a little bit quick, a little bit snappy. I think the police ought to be getting the speed gun out with this thing, because it's doing what, 20 knots, something like that on there. I mean, yeah. Slow down a bit. But you know, it is what it is. We don't need any flap for takeoff. It's a fairly nippy performer on takeoff. You've got quite a bunch of power in this. What I'll do is I've got a little mental check of a climb out profile that we used to use, and I'm just going to see if the performance matches that profile that we used to use. Before there, we'll bring it to a halt and we'll have a look at the engine run-ups. So most people with most piston engines are you know, they're familiar with the idea of stick the nose so that your draft from your propellers is going to go somewhere safe, and then run up each engine individually, cycle the prop 3 times, check for carb heat, check for all the, you know, idling, etc. This thing's super simple. As I say, we're getting into jet territory with how simple some of these things are. It's these buttons down here, and this will do everything for you. It's because you've got what's called ECUs, or engine control units, and you've got 4 in total. You've got A and B on each engine, but you test the ECUs with this, and it will test both ECUs. So what it should do is it should cycle through a process, and what we'll do actually, we'll pop this offline again, just so I can easily have the engine instrumentation up here, and you'll see it and hear it in terms of its functionality. So we'll run up engine 1, so you press and hold the button, and then you see it'll cycle its prop, it'll change its ECUs, it'll do all the necessary things it needs to do as part of its test. It'll run up a second time, And that's it done. What I'd say is, in the real aircraft, what we were able to do to just save time, you can press them both in at the same time with your fingers and just get the whole shebang done in one go. And then just check your ECUs aren't going to, you haven't got a failed ECU. I've got a failed click finger. Is that a legitimate excuse? There we go. It's just quite a small click point. And yeah, I mean, we're pretty much good to go. Make sure we turn the pitot heat on. That'll get rid of those warnings. Make sure we turn our support telly on. Bing, there we go, we're all good to go. The caution is for the stall heater failure. Confused me ages ago. So the aircraft has two heaters. It has the stall heater and the pitot heat. They're both controlled by this button, but the pitot heat will automatically sort its life out and generally will be okay and will clear, but the stall heater won't until you're off the ground. So don't worry if you see that yellow light. Let's go flying, see what this thing's like. These lights, we'll just turn them up just in case for whatever reason we suddenly get into night time. But we're going to follow the SID out, see how we get on. We'll see how it is in terms of hand flying it. So what we can do here is we can come down here for the autopilot stuff, and we can go nav to follow the SID, and then what we're going to do is climb up to a reasonable altitude. Talking of which, I've been gassing away, so I haven't set an altitude. So let's just pull ourselves to a halt, a tidy halt. As I say, steering on the ground on this thing is nice. Let's go to 7,000 on that. 7,000 set, checked, everything's good to go. And then we'll climb out. We've got pitch if we pop the autopilot in, but let's go. Power up, off the brakes, control any twitchiness. It wants to go left, so let's just feed in a little bit of right. Try and bring us back to centre line, looking for about 80 knots to rotate. It's nice and easy to control on the centre line, I'm just rubbish at it. And then we're going to come up. We're going to wait for there to be no further landing space available on the runway before we retract our gear. Because unlike a jet, there's a good chance with most runways we could get back down again. And so the gear's up, and the climb out profile we used back in the day was approximately 10 degrees nose up at 100%, gave you 100 knots for your climb rate, for your climb speed. Just get that back to there. There we go. And oh, we're not far off, are we? Look, not bad at all. Now it's nice to trim. It's always a biggie, isn't it? We hate to end up in a situation where we take our eyes away and all of a sudden we're at 100 feet lower than we wanted to be. And we'll just bring it round to the left. You do need to use your feet in this aircraft, which is nice. We like to have to use our feet. They get bored if they're left alone. Just keep the turn going a little bit more, just because we're just slightly off. And yeah, I mean, so hand flying, it's a lovely thing to hand fly. I mean, the real aircraft is nice and stable. It's a really good instrument platform, to be honest. I really enjoyed doing my instrument rating on it. And actually I did my multi-rating on it, my multi-engine rating on the DA42 as well, and that was good fun. That was good fun doing all the multi-engine stuff. What we're going to do is we're just going to pop the yaw damper on, the autopilot, and then what we're going to do is we're also going to where's it gone? Flight level change. And what it'll do is it'll hold that airspeed whilst it climbs. And you see your enunciations up here. GPS, so LNAV equivalent, autopilot, yaw dampers in, flight level change. It's not really a flight level change in the strictest sense of the word. It's more an indicated airspeed hold. And then your speed here. So yeah, I can't fault it. really at this point in terms of how it acts. This little hoofa-doofa here, I didn't have this. This is a velocity indicator, so it would tell you if you're drifting left, right, and basically where this is where your aircraft is going. That's why if you zoom right in here, you'll notice that although the magenta line is on whatever heading it's on, we're actually flying 228, and that's because we're drifting to the left. Really nice gadget. I wish I'd had that in the flights I was doing. Would have been really helpful, because if you put that on 3 degrees down, that's you on a glide slope, and all you've got to do is keep that on a glide slope, and then play with your throttles, your power levers, whatever, in order to maintain that glide slope. Really useful system, which unfortunately wasn't available to me, and the chances are if it was, they probably would have turned it off, because they like to test you. It's what they're there for. So a couple of things I'm going to mention trend indicators here. The instruments have trend indicators, so you'll see as we accelerate or decelerate, you get a magenta line, not too dissimilar to this. The line is, I believe it's equivalent to 7 seconds, so wherever this line is, you will be at that position in 7 seconds time. So let's go here, 4,300, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. Pretty good. There's also, in here, there's a magenta line. So you can see there's a mark here, big mark here, big mark here, and there's two little ones. The two little ones are half rate turn to the left and right, and the two big ones are standard rate turn to the left and right. And what you'll find is the faster your turn rate, the more, actually you see it here coming around. I'm not helping with the rudders, but there we go. Oh, we've got a yaw damper on this thing, so it's auto rudder in this, yeah. So if it had reached here, it was going to be a rate 1 turn to the left, a standard turn to the left. It hasn't. It's been a bit more gentle in terms of its play time with it. But yeah, you can see the trend, and that's really useful, because basically when you're doing your rate 1 turn, unlike a 6-pack of instruments where you'd have instruments all over the place, in this one space you've got your needle, your compass rose, your numerical heading that you're currently on, and also your turn rate as a standard left or right turn. Really useful. That little area there, fantastic bit of kit. So yeah, right, now what we're going to do is have a think about some of the other elements in terms of the flying. We're not going to climb all the way up to altitude, we're not going to fly that route, but what I'm looking for is whether the performance matches what I would expect out of the aircraft. Levelling nicely, avionics, alt capture, and we're accelerating, and we'll just see what it tops out at 7,000. It's not the fastest aircraft, it's more a case of the fact that it's quite an economical aircraft compared to its peer group. It's very sleek and shiny, so you know it's no slouch. We've got a TAS of 150 at the minute, and it's slowly climbing further. We'll keep the pedal to the metal and see what we get. But I'm quite reassured that the book numbers are pretty much matched by the airframe. I don't know what the performance difference was when they put the TDI engines in, because I don't know if the engines are heavier or lighter, produce more power or less power. But certainly on the climb out we've got the right numbers for what I'd anticipate. So let's just pop back a bit. What we're going to do is have an investigation of the flight handling. Yeah, we're going to top out about 145 really. What's that? 160 knots TAS. Yeah, it's about right really, isn't it? I mean, as I say, it's not. It was never put on the earth to be a speed machine. It was put on the earth to be an economical as a twin can be, an economical aircraft for general aviation. So anyway, very nice indeed. Okay, let's have a little bit of a play with it and see what she's like. So the first thing I'm going to do is just set the autopilot off. Boop, boop. I don't recall having a warning sign on the aircraft I flew. That's going to be unique to this generation, the NXI generation. Yeah, as I say, I flew the dinosaur equivalent of this. Okay, so having taken all of that off, it should be fairly trimmed. What we'll do is see just how stable it is. So it does hold relatively. What I'm going to say is that for some reason, I don't know why, but I've had two Warthog joysticks, and in fact this Warthog joystick I've got now is attached to a VPC Warbird base. But even in jets it seems to have very slow roll to the right. Now we can correct it with some right rudder, but obviously then we start flying out of coordinated flight if we're not careful. But the rudder's nice in terms of holding it there for us if we want to. We can play very delicately with the rudder. Now in terms of the actual handling, it's very safe and stable. It doesn't really do anything to upset the world. I've just put it into a left-hand turn. It's just sitting there, starting to drop the nose a little bit as the speed's there. Off we go. Very easy, very stable. Now I wouldn't say it's stable positive in terms of its stability, because if you look, we seem to be getting gradually steeper and steeper in our turn. It's very slow, but it is noticeable that we are steepening our turn. So it's weakly unstable in roll. It's going to be pretty stable in pitch, I would have thought. Nose up, speed decreases. As it decreases, nose starts to drop. As it drops, speed increases. As it increases, nose rises. There we go. It's not happening very excitedly because it's quite a stable airframe. It's just doing its own thing. It's not going to throw you out the sky, which makes it a perfect cruiser, long-range cruiser, which is one of the things it can do. Perfect for doing its alternate roles in terms of surveillance, TV camera work, monitoring. I know some countries use them for Coast Guard stuff, for example. And then also, you know, it's a perfect flight trainer because it just does as it's told. It does it just very competently. So roll, we said. Now I'm just wondering if it might be my. No, we are slowly rolling to the right a little bit more, aren't we? So that may well be accurate to the aircraft. I can't remember. All I remember is you could take your eyes off it for a while and it'd be largely where you left it if you weren't looking at the instruments for a little bit. So yeah, it's I would say it's pretty true to life, pretty accurate to be fair in its handling. Rudder, most aircraft like this have very strong stability in terms of yaw. There we go, a few oscillations and it dies down again. Obviously with a twin, the rudder tends to be quite powerful, so you can see where we've got our, let's try and turn to the right at the moment, you can see where we've put our little line, our little velocity marker right out to the left, and we can do the same on the right as well. So absolutely superb. Really like the flying characteristics. It's a really nice aircraft to hand fly. Very good for flying the numbers in terms of hand flying. God knows where we are in the world at the minute, but it's very built up. Probably best not to mess around too much at this altitude. But I mean, as you can see, we've been messing around. We're still only 40 feet high, really. Probably more by luck than judgment, if I'm honest. But I think that's more to do with the aircraft than me. As I say, take my hands off. Nothing exciting happens. It's not going to do you any damage, which makes it a perfect long-range tool. It makes a perfect instrument platform. Makes it a perfect cruiser. You know, really, really nice. And the way they've developed it, the sound is very good as well. That's exactly what it sounds like in the real thing. Yeah. If I'd had a bad experience, I would be quaking in a minute, but as I say, I've got a very fond spot. Hopefully it's not showing in the video. I mean, at the end of the day, if there's a product I was going to be critical of, it would be this this aircraft. Sorry, if there's an aircraft I was going to be critical of, it was probably going to be this, because this is the one that is one of the more fond ones in my heart, and I'm struggling to find areas where it's deficient. Certainly from Cowell's point of view, you know, they've done a very nice job that I can see in terms of virtually every aspect. We probably ought to bring our throttles back, and what we'll do is we'll ignore the horn that's telling us that, oh, you pulled your throttles all the way back. And your gear isn't down. Yeah, I know, because I'm going to bring it up towards a stall and see how stable it really is. So the speed's coming back nicely. We've got a slight climb, but that's not going to be an issue. That's going to help us out a little bit. And you can hear the prop tone changing as we slow down. Stall warning, and we're still pulling. Everything's balanced, so I'm just hoping it will just do a straightforward wallowy descent. It has bitten me once before where it did a proper stall and it was like, whoa! But yeah, it's not doing anything surprising. Got a lot, well, I say a lot, got a very slow, but I do have some roll authority in the stall. I must admit, I'll be honest, I can't remember much about the low speed handling when we did low speed handling in these things. Okay, let's just put a bit of power on, drop the nose, remove the cause of the stall, try not to re-enter a stall. We'll put a stage of flap down to see what else we get. The sounds from the engine are uncanny. Try and hold level flight if we can. It might bite with the flaps, but I don't know if it will. No. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is look at minimum control speed, single engine. So what it should be able to do on a single engine, you should be able to maintain your minimum safe single engine speed with no more than 5 degrees roll in to the live engine. So you can hopefully see that it's got VMC on the speed tape. I'm keeping the nose up so that we do actually get down to that speed, and we'll see if we can maintain the heading at that speed. I'm not so interested in much else, but I think it's 69 knots. Can I maintain heading with rudder and 5 degrees roll into the turn? Just about. My word, that's good. I like that. We're going a bit too slow now. So if we go slow, we're not necessarily going to fall out of the sky, but what we're not going to be able to do is maintain our heading. Yeah, that's uncannily good. It's the best I've come across, in fact, in that aspect of flying. Reintroduce power. Right. I mean, love it. It's a really nice aircraft to fly. Really nice. And, you know, things that bug me in some aircraft don't bug me in this because they're not there. The trim is lovely. A lot of aircraft you'll end up bouncing around like Zebedee, for those who can remember Zebedee. Trying to get hold of the pitch in terms of the trim. This thing seems to be geared quite well. The actual aircraft was really easy to trim out, actually, and you had two means. You had the buttons on the top of the stick. Stop trimming, by the way, so we're probably going to die. Or you had the wheel down here, and I think both work in the yeah, both work. So yeah, I mean, I'm struggling to pull it apart, to be honest. Yeah, right, let's have a bit of a play. Right, let's go to nearest. Well, that's no use, is it? Direct to, I don't want direct to, nearest EGBN. It's only 9 miles away. Direct to EGBN. Enter, activate, enter, and there we go. Our sat nav is telling us where EGBN is. It's going to be quite nice because we've had an absolute horror in the aircraft and both engines have failed. Oh no, what are we going to do? Let's have a good play around, see how it is in terms of its handling. Right, so it's somewhere over here, off to our left. How far away is it now? me see. Direct track 049. Right, so it's straight on the nose. Apparently we just slight of. And how far away is it? Let's get the DME up. DME, it's coming off nav 1. We haven't got nav 1, have we? Of course we haven't. Right, so what I'm going to do is just turn right a bit to see if I can put whatever this airfield is. I've got no idea what it is. Slightly out to the left. I will try and maintain a reasonable glide speed. Yeah, don't worry about it. I will point out, by the way, that this effect here is absolutely amazing. It does this in real life with an aircraft with the engine out. It will just lazily turn over like that.
Check gear.
Let's have a look here. How far have we got to go? I'm not convinced we're going to make this. It's 2.5 miles away. We should do. What's our rate of descent? We're going down only 500 feet a minute. Oh, that's not too bad. Oh, we should easily make it. I just love that prop turning over in the wind. Love it.
Check gear.
Right, how are we doing?
Gear.
Cool, still a little while away.
Check gear.
Yeah, I'm not convinced we're going to make this because the map doesn't seem to be moving at all quickly underneath us. And in fact the EGUX, is it? Appears to be closer. So we'll make a turn for that.
Check gear.
I'm not convinced that's telling us anything useful, is it? Because I've got the flight plan up, haven't I?
Check gear.
Well, that's my stupid fault. What have I got to land on? Not a lot. But that's East Mids over there. How far away is it? Oh, I'm not going to make that, surely.
Check gear.
Well, if we crash and die, it's all my fault, isn't it?
Check gear.
Oh, I don't think we're going to make this, but let's see what happens, eh? Oh, we're never going to make that. We've got what? 3,000 feet? 1,000 feet a minute rate of descent. We've got 3 minutes to go. We haven't got a hope in hell.
Check gear.
Haven't got a hope in hell. But we'll see what happens. It's coming in though. But I can't see that we're going to make this. It would be a flipping miracle if we do. Be an absolute miracle if we do. But hey, so yeah, whilst we're doing this, we might as well run through what we think of the aircraft.
Gear.
External visuals are very good. There's a couple of minor niggles, but nothing that's a deal breaker for me. Very pleasant to look at, very well modelled in terms of the 3D modelling and shaping. So that's, you know, big tick there. In terms of the interior modelling, absolutely spot on. Really like it. Sounds great. Textures are great. 3D modelling is great. In terms of systems, the fact that you've got working circuit breakers, tongue-tied there. What? Here's Leicester. We've only gone and made it. Down there, my friends. Let's get ourselves down onto that piece of tarmac. Well, there we go. Now I'm not going to put anything down until I'm certain that we're going to land on a runway. I also don't really want to
Check gear.
lose sight of the runway till we're at such an altitude where it's going to be useful for us. What are we at? 1800.
Check gear.
Yeah, that prop just lazily turning over.
Check gear.
Right.
Check gear.
Yeah. Leicester Aero Club's a lovely aero club, I have to be honest. Started doing my flight instructors rating there, and the guys that work there are absolutely fantastic. And actually I came across Leicester Aero Club because my flying instructor, who I did a lot of flying with for my PPL and CPL, he used to be an instructor here, and really nice bloke, very experienced instructor, and he absolutely put you at ease with virtually everything. Doesn't matter what you were doing, he would put you at ease with it. And yeah, you know, it's a very nice place. Did a few hours on a helicopter there as well for my sins. Got to make sure I don't turn in too late and land short, so we'll turn in now. Oh, we're not going to land short, are we?
Check gear.
Just make sure I don't pull through and stall the aircraft. As we're coming round. Now the gear is electrically operated, hydraulically powered. So what we can do is put gear down, and it should work. It's an electrically driven pump. And what we will also do is put our full flap down. Howling wind, nice. I think we're going to run out of runway though. I think we're desperately going to run out of runway. Or maybe not. Bit of a thump there, but we want to get down. Let's not pussyfoot around with making it go, ooh, it's all squeaky, we've gone on the ground softly. Right, okay. In summary, exterior, great, few niggles. Interior, great. Only drawback for me is I wish that this was a custom one instead of just the working title G1000. Having said that, it's more than up to purpose. It's very good in terms of representation. The niggle really that bothers me is the fact that if you wanted to do another flight on from here to another airfield, you'd have to come out of the whole flight and then go back into the flight, otherwise you can't get your flight plan. It's a relatively minor niggle. The fact that you can have continuous sort of damage modelling, or however you want to look at it, continuity between flights, if you go through the instructions that are on their pages, that's absolutely great. Working circuit breakers, absolutely brilliant. Oh dear, look, vertical speed fail, air data computers fail basically, so it's like an airliner. It doesn't just take a pipe from you know, the pitot tube and feed it here, there and everywhere. It all goes into an air data computer, and if something fails, then it has the knock-on effect. So yeah, a gear and gear warning and elevator. Or on the ground, it's not going to do a blind bit thing. But the fact that these are modelled, really, really nice. And actually, if you are a pilot going through training, this is quite a useful thing for you. It's flying by the numbers. It operates like the real thing. The G1000's usable to a very decent level. You've got your circuit breakers to play around with. I love the props turning over, but the other thing I will point out is we'll jump out, come this way. You'll notice that the props are feathered because the system auto feathers the props, and it's done a beautiful job of it. Look, absolutely fantastic. So the systems are good systems. The way they've operated the systems and the way they've put the systems into the aircraft, really like it. So yeah, I mean, that's it really for me, guys. Outside's great, inside's great, flying, handling and characteristics are great. You know, what more is there to say? So hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, don't forget to share, like and subscribe the video. It's hugely appreciated. And I'm going to go and feel ill somewhere else now. But thanks for watching. Take care.